We're catching largemouth bass in these fishing videos, and we're going to tell you the top baits you need in your tackle box to catch big bucket mouths like this. Everyone loves largemouth bass, and after these 10 minutes, you'll be a pro. Okay, folks, whether you are a seasoned pro already or just a beginner, choosing the right baits and lures for bass fishing can make all the difference in your fishing success. So we're going to dive right in now and explore all the best options available to you for fishing fun and success. So the first must-have bait is the plastic worm, which is a true staple and necessity for anyone that's going bass fishing. And that is because plastic worms are very, very versatile and highly effective. And that makes them an absolute must in any bass angler's tackle box. Of course, they come in an absolute ton of different colors, sizes, shapes, and scents, and that's going to allow you to pick the right one for any lake you fish to mimic the local forage and bait fish perfectly, which of course is what the bass eats naturally every day. Okay, the three most popular ways to rig up and fish these plastic worms are the Texas rig, Carolina rig, and wacky style. Okay, so first for the Texas rig, all you have to do is simply thread the worm onto a 2/0 or 3/0 worm hook, and then you embed the hook point back into the worm to make it weedless, and that's important because that allows you to throw it into the thickest of cover, like lily pads and brush piles and sunken trees, and that's where the biggest bass are going to be hiding. Okay, next is the Carolina rig, which is similar, but just involves using a bit heavier of a sinker and a leader usually that allows the worm to move a lot more freely in the water. And both of these techniques are very effective in different situations. Obviously, it depends on how deep the bass are holding, weather conditions, and basically how much structure is in the lake. So basically, you just have to adapt to the conditions that you're fishing on that particular day. And if you want to be really crazy, you can wacky rig it, which is basically sliding an O-ring onto your plastic worm, and then you run your hook or your wacky jig head under the O-ring, and this allows the worm to really flop around and dance erratically. Okay, bait number 2 are crankbaits and jerkbaits, and these are hard plastic lures with sharp treble hooks that are designed to mimic swimming or wounded bait fish, and they are very effective when bass are actively feeding, like in late spring and early fall. Obviously, crankbaits and jerkbaits come in a ton of different styles as well, including shallow diving, medium diving, and deep diving crankbaits, with each of them particularly suited for differing depths of water depending on whether you're trolling or casting into. And the lip of the crankbait is what typically determines how far she's going to dive. So when you're using your crankbaits and jerkbaits, it's important that you choose the right size and color based on the bait fish color and the water clarity. Usually you want to use natural colors like a shad or bluegill patterns that work really well in clear water, and you want to go with brighter colors like chartreuse, fire tiger, pinks and yellows, etc., that are working much better in a murky or a stained water. So most people troll crankbaits, but you can certainly cast them out and retrieve, varying your retrieve speeds and putting pauses in between, and that'll entice the bass to more aggressively strike. Okay, the third bait is a jig, which is a fantastic option for targeting largemouth bass, especially when you're fishing in heavy cover or structure where the bass hide to stay cooler and ambush their prey. A jig basically consists of a weighted head, a hook, and a skirt trailer that gives it a lifelike appearance in the water, like a crawdad or a frog or a lizard, etc. Jigs can be fished at all different depths depending on the weight that you choose, But one of the keys to remember when you're fishing with jigs is to use either a hopping or flipping or dragging motion along the bottom. And what this will do is mimic the movement of crawfish and other prey that lives on the bottom and near the rocks. So flipping jigs are really great when you're fishing in thick vegetation, brush piles, and lily pads. And remember, whatever you do, match the hatch. And that is to match the color of your jig to the forage and insects and baitfish colors in that lake. So you're always giving yourself the best chance for success. Okay, bait number 4 is a spinnerbait, which is a very versatile and highly effective lure for covering large areas of water very quickly. These lures usually have one or more spinning blades on them that creates a ton of flash and vibration in the water, which will usually attract bass from a greater distance. So the combination of the blade and the skirted jig body that you use makes spinnerbaits very appealing to bass. That can usually relate to a very aggressive strike when they do find it. So when you're fishing your spinnerbaits, you want to make sure you're varying your retrieve speed and you try different blade sizes, colors, and combinations to see what the bass are most responding to that day in that body of water. The blades of the spinnerbait will produce a lot of flash and vibration like we talked about, and that makes it great for both clear water and murky water. Spinnerbaits can also be deadly effective when you fish them around structure like docks, submerged wood, timber, weed edges, and vegetation in the lake, which of course attracts the bait fish, which the bass are constantly chasing after. Okay, bait 5 is topwater lures, and there's nothing quite like the excitement and thrill when a bass blows up a topwater lure. They are perfect for targeting aggressive bass, especially in the summertime and particularly in early morning strikes. So the topwater lure basically floats on the surface of the water and creates a ton of commotion when you walk it in that attracts bass looking for a real easy meal. Bass, like most fish, feed up, which is the real draw to a topwater blow-up. Bass feed all throughout the day, but early morning and late evening are the prime times for topwater bass fishing because that's when bass are more likely aggressively feeding near the surface. And what you want to do is just use a steady retrieve with occasional pauses of the lure, and that's going to mimic the movement of a struggling or wounded bait fish. And just pay very close attention to any disturbance at the surface of the water because that's going to indicate that a bass is likely nearby chasing your bait. And then boom, it's going to happen and they're going to inhale it out of nowhere. Okay, last but not least is bait 6, and that is a swim bait. A soft plastic swim bait is another really great choice for catching bigger largemouth bass. And that's because these lures are typically a little bit bigger in profile and they have a very lifelike appearance and a swimming action that bass find irresistible because they look like the real thing. Swim baits also come in a variety of different sizes. You can rig them weedless or with an exposed hook, depending on how thick the cover is that you're fishing in. So when you're fishing with your swim bait, a slow and steady retrieve is usually the best option, and that's because this allows the lure to swim more naturally and like a bait fish, and it'll trigger strikes from nearby bass who are obviously trying to chase it down. So you want to make sure you also vary the retrieve speed and use occasional twitches and pauses when you're reeling it in to make the lure seem more enticing. Most people use swim baits when they're fishing in more clear water, and that's because bass are in there feeding on larger prey. Again, this lure is when you're really serious about going after a real big one. Okay, folks, there you have it. Thanks for giving us 10 minutes of your time. Those are the 6 best baits and lures for catching largemouth bass 7 days a week. Just remember, be patient, experiment, try different baits and techniques and sizes and colors to see what will work best in your local body of water on any given day. Good luck, go get them, and we'll see you out on the water. Okay, folks, thanks for watching. Please like this video, hit the subscribe button before you leave, and don't forget to enable your bell notifications so you never miss another great video coming your way.